Hello guys, and how is it going? In today's video, we will review a game that has been in development since 2014. Why did it take so long? I've heard that the game has changed studios several times and then it was delayed a few times. I honestly thought that the game was dead and totally forgot about it, and then all of a sudden it came out. The game we are talking about today is Dead Island 2. The game was released on the 21st of April 2023 by the developers Deep Silver Dumpster Studios and was published by Deep Silver. And it was released for PC, PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X, and Xbox One. As always, we will start with an introduction of the game, so if you don't want the story spoiled, I suggest you skip to this timestamp below. As many other games out there, we wake up in a crashed airplane. We are bleeding heavily and are in need of a med pack. As we stumble through the dark corridors of the plane, we finally find what we need and patch up. As we move through the crashed plane, we find our way outside where we meet 5 new people that have survived the crash. One of the survivors is trapped under some debris and the other is breathing but not responding. After some time, we start to hear a noise that doesn't sound welcoming, and the group starts to panic and are about to leave. The 3 people that are well and healthy leave you alone to defend the 2 survivors that are stuck/unconscious. But before they leave, a girl named Emma writes down an address on your arm so you can find them afterwards. After fighting off the zombies, you go back to the 2 survivors. When you get close, one of them attacks you and bites you in the process. You manage to get her off, but then she attacks the other survivor and kills him. Your view starts to blur out and you remember the address written on your arm. You start to stumble away and pass out, just to wake up in LA. And this is where our story begins. The game looks great except for some minor issues like shadows and some graphical details, but there's a lot of detail in this game, especially indoors. This game for me was very pleasant to look at, and I had no issues playing it on ultra setting, which surprised me since we are so used to stuttering, startup issues, or lag. It has come to a point of, if you see a game that costs $60 or more, you know it's probably going to run like crap, even if you have spent X amount of money on your ultra high-end PC, which is very sad. But this game performs splendidly. I ran the game on ultra setting with 2K resolution on my GeForce RTX 3070 and my Ryzen 7 processor. Since the game has gone through a few developers, I was certain the game was going to run like shit, but I was happily surprised. Nice that the developers hung in there and managed to release a working game. Even if a game looks great and runs better than I predicted, doesn't mean that the game is amazing. So at the start, you can choose between 5 different characters, also called Slayers in the game, that all have different stats, perks, and personalities. Let's get this out of the way before I continue. I really don't enjoy survival comedy games. For example, I can handle games like Dead Rising 1 where the game has aspects of comedy but also some kind of seriousness to it. But in this game, I felt like everything was a big joke. There was just a little too much of it for my taste, so much that it kind of made me stop caring about the story since everything anyone said to us was met with jokes or sarcasm. I played as Jacob, and in almost 90% of every conversation he had, it was met with jokes. But there were a few moments in certain quests where he was serious, which I really enjoyed. I also learned that not every character is like this. At least not as much, so I probably just chose the wrong Slayer. After a while of playing, we gain our first level up and I get to see the skill tree for the first time. So, the skill tree consists of cards that you either collect out in the world or get by doing quests. We have 4 different categories: Ability, Survivor, Slayer, and Newman, and you can have 15 active cards in total. Abilities can equip up to 5 ability skill cards, and every skill card slot has its own subcategory. From left to right, you have these subcategories: Defense skills, Jump kick skills, Special attack skills, Fury skills, and Fury special skills. Survivor skill cards modify the functionality of your ability cards. For example, in the ability category, you have Block as a subcategory, You can put a card in the survivor category that will give you health if you time your block right. The Slayer category is for modifying attacks and abilities, like you have a higher chance of zombies being knocked over when doing a heavy hit. Newman is a category with very powerful effects and conditions, and I will say no more for spoiler reasons. So now that I have explained as well as I can, and I hope you followed and understood everything I said. No? Well, don't feel bad because I still don't understand this fully, and to be honest, I just don't like this. No, I'm not an old man that hates change and can't stand all the young kids nowadays. Quite the opposite. I enjoy new things that are smart and easy to use, but this was just a mess for me. So much that I didn't care for it. I just think that they are making it more complicated than it has to be. It's not that they use a card system, but mostly it is that I can't choose where I want to put my points. I just get a random card that the game chooses for me when I level up. I just don't see why anyone would want to look at this skill tree instead of this skill tree, and I can't see why they needed to do it this way. When I started my first quest, I was pumped to see what this game could offer, and I was very satisfied for most part, but it doesn't add anything we haven't already seen. I feel like it's the same as all the other zombie survival games that has been released, and you could easily foresee what was going to happen in the end, at least in the big picture of things. But when it came to following up on side quests, there were some issues that I felt needed to have a greater and better flow in following up on missions. Like for gathering quests, we all know that all games have gathering quests and I happily go through them for some sweet reward, but when out gathering whatever you need, you have the mission showing you collect 3 of something. It does not show how much you have gathered since a lot is happening around you while gathering things. You only get a prompt down in the right corner that disappears fast, so it's easy to miss what you picked up. That means that you have to go into your inventory and check if you collected enough of what you need to finish the quest, and to me, that's just wasting my time. I don't want to go into the menu every 5 minutes and destroy the immersion of the game to check if I have what I need. There are also a lot of doors being locked everywhere, and that's fine. I have no problem exploring, but in every quest you have to find a circuit breaker for a door or find a card for a door. And it just got to a point where you got frustrated every time it happened, and it happens a lot in this game. There are special quests where you follow up on notes called Lost and Found quests that you find if you explore enough, and honestly, this is what I like. These missions do not show up on the map all the time, so you have to read the notes to find out where the next clue might be. The same goes for the locked doors that need fuses to open them. I first thought that if I explore enough, I will find fuses in the world, but then realized that I can buy them from the vendors only. And that's fine, but would it have been such a bad thing to add them in the world? I mean, make them hard to find, so the second option of buying them is still something you can do. We also have challenges in the game that consist of killing a certain kind of zombie a number of times, and the reward is money. And if you kill enough, you also get a hint on how to better handle these zombies in the Zompedia, which you can find by pressing Tab, Collectibles, and Zompedia. The Zompedia will tell you numerous things like attacks of the different enemies in the world and what weaknesses they have. The challenges also consist of other challenges like blueprint challenges, combat challenges, weapon challenges, and much more, which is a good way of earning money, and it adds some preparedness to the game, making it feel like an actual zombie apocalypse. Right at the start, the fighting feels slow at the beginning, like something is off. At least it felt that way for me. When I learned that we could dodge or evade, which will stun the zombies, which gave you a chance to kill them in different ways depending on what weapon you currently was using, and I just fell in love with that. Almost using this for everything in the entire game, and it also made me want to test other weapons to see what kind of zombie killing variation all the weapons offered. I felt that they could have added more variation to this, like unlocking different kinds of finishers when you complete challenges for each weapon. We do also have firearms in this game, but it just doesn't feel good using them, and you feel right away that this game focuses more on melee combat, which is fine, but if you're gonna have guns in the game, at least make them comfortable enough to use. I only used them for crowd control when I got overwhelmed while fighting a special enemy and multiple standard zombies, or to use them to start some environment event to kill off most of the enemies in my way. We can also upgrade weapons, and sadly for me, I felt that the option we had here was not much. We had the standard fire, electric, acid, and bleeding perks that we could add, and then we had one weapon mod. We did also have zombie perks where you can use the zombies' attacks against them, but collecting the materials was very difficult, which made it not so fun to try collecting them. As you progress through the game, you will level up, and this is the only game where I have ever felt that leveling up was not needed. Since I didn't enjoy the skill tree as I said earlier, I just didn't care for what level I was, and this is where I will compare this section to another game, Dying Light 1. In this game, you are useless in the beginning. You run like shit, you fight like shit. Basically every kind of physical act in the game, you feel like shit. But as you progress, you start to feel like your hard work is paying off, making you run faster, fight better, being able to do things in much easier ways. And isn't that what leveling up should feel like in every game? Or was this just a happy coincidence, or is it just me feeling this? But in Dead Island, you don't feel this when you level up. As you progress, you feel like you are running as fast as you did at the start. Your fighting skills are kind of the same except for certain skills that you have obtained. The game, as I said before, performed much better than I thought it would. And it might even be one of the best performing games of 2023. But I did encounter some immersion issues like zombies appearing right in front of you or disappearing while turning to check your back for 1 second and then turning around ready for a fight and then nothing was there. Or going into a finishing move and while doing it, you and the zombie flew around the area, and when you were finished, you end up where you start if you are lucky. But if you are like me, you got stuck behind a tree or a rock and had to restart the game. Luckily, this didn't happen very often, and most times I could get unstuck by pressing my whole keyboard. I felt like I was playing an MMO waiting for the spawn of a boss, except these were normal zombies, and I do understand that they need to spawn, but not right next to me. The story is interesting, even if it's the same old story as all the other zombie apocalypse survival games. Honestly, the comedy of the game just killed it for me for almost the entire midsection of the game, but as I kept pushing, I liked it more and more, and now I want to play it with a different character to see new dialogue. A game doesn't have to be game-changing for the whole gaming world like Mass Effect or Red Dead Redemption. I could say that the story was crap, but honestly, I don't think it's the story or the plot holding this game down. For me, it had more to do with the character I played, not taking anything serious. I can mess around in games, but when it's non-stop and almost in every dialogue, I just stop caring. If the main protagonist doesn't care, why should I? But near the end, it changed a little, and all of a sudden, I was into it again, but by then, it was a little bit too late. I feel that the game had great visuals and sound. It worked like a charm with no lag or stuttering. The combat finishes was amazing but few. It is gory, lost and found quests were fun to do. Fuse locked doors had good loot, so it felt worth it, and the challenges was also something I enjoyed, but it's hard to take the story seriously since there is jokes in almost every dialogue, zombies appearing right in front of you or disappearing for no reason, skill tree that is more complicated than it has to be, and what is up with the $70 price tag? This feels more like a $40 or $50 game. So if I were you, I'll wait for a sale before buying this, but I do think you should pick it up at some point. Overall, this game is a fun zombie killing gore fest game, and even if I complain about certain things in the game, I must admit that I did enjoy most of the gameplay. My final verdict for this game is a 6 out of 10, and the reason for that is mostly because of the ridiculous pricing of $70 and the game feeling a bit outdated, but it's still fun to play in many ways. So if you are looking for a zombie apocalypse game where you get to slice zombies in fashionable ways, this is a game for you. But if you are looking for something new in the zombie apocalypse game world, you will be disappointed. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I have a channel that will be packed with this kind of stuff in the future. So if you want to join me on my journey, I welcome and thank you. And remember, life is too short to play bad games. Let me help you find the best. See you guys, and thank you for watching.